warm, clear, transparent, violent, crackling, exciting, shimmering, dark blue, gold. A world. We are playing Mahler's 9th Symphony on the instruments that Mahler wrote it for, because they have changed in the last 110 years. Mahler spent his last 3 summers here in Toblach, and he wrote his last 3 symphonies here. But there's also the wonderful Grand Hotel where we can stay and where we can rehearse. I think it's important to know what it's all about, what's behind it, why did he write this music, what's he trying to tell us, what's philosophically behind it, biographically, all of that stuff. And then a big part of the preparation in this case was also to have Clive Brown here with us in Toblach, because he is the leading researcher in the field of performance practice for romantic music.
Fundamentally, it's about rediscovering the past. It's not about trying to reproduce the past, because that's an impossibility, but it's about finding out what they did in those days, which is different from what we do now, and how that affected the sound of the music. There was essentially a stylistic revolution in the early 20th century, which swept away a lot of the things that people did in the past. And what happened in the meantime was that people started to feel that the notation on the page was the only guide to what the composer wanted. And so for a generation or two, we have been playing the music very strictly according to what's on the page. Now, the truth of the matter is that that is not what the composer wanted.
So we're using the exact instruments that Mahler bought for the Vienna Court Opera. And so he was their director for 10 years, and in these 10 years he basically renewed all the wind and brass and percussion instruments.
Well, the other factor in that is the instruments themselves, because they have different sounds from the ones we use today. It's particularly true of the brass and woodwind. They make fundamentally different sounds. Modern instruments have tended towards a kind of coalescence of sound, whereas these are much more distinct individual sounds.
And then we looked for these instruments in auctions, on eBay, on attics, in the whole world. We bought them, some of them very cheap, some extremely expensive. We restored them, we learned to play them, and here we are. There's a beautiful Louis Lot flute from 1876. There are 2 Erard harps. There are Schneller timpani. Schneller was Mahler's timpanist in the Vienna Opera, and he built timpani. And we have a beautiful Hayek oboe, which is an instrument that is impossible to find, but we have one. We have so-called Genossenschaftshörner. These are the old Viennese horns, the predecessor to today's Viennese horn. The strings play on gut strings. Of course, they have their modern instruments, gut strings, wooden mutes. The winds have all the old instruments.
Another factor in the stylistic aspect of it is that we don't play the notes really strictly as they are written. There's flexibility. There's much more flexibility, not just of tempo overall, which is the conductor's business, but also in the shaping of the melodies, the phrases. And this gives it a kind of natural flexibility which is lost in most modern performance.
It's half and half, 50 musicians I could say. The students of the Mahler Academy in Bolzano, they have been chosen through a rigorous audition process, and then with them play 50 professional musicians, and they come from, yeah, you could say Europe's top ensembles, from the Staatskapelle Dresden, from the Vienna Symphony, from the Concertgebouw Orchestra, from the Mahler Chamber Orchestra of Europe, all kinds of wonderful orchestras, and they're all people who want to come together here to rediscover this music. The musicians are incredibly, wonderfully open to all of this. They agreed to do the project because they are cool and they are game and they want to try something new. It changes my view on the music of Mahler insofar as a lot of the things that I knew they were doing, for example, vibrate very little in this music. It's just something I couldn't quite imagine on modern instruments. I had tried it with orchestras, and yeah, it has a purity, but it also has kind of a coldness that wasn't appropriate. And now with these instruments, it's perfect. It's just perfect.